Hello and welcome to First Bank Center for Family-Owned Businesses webinar series. I'm Mike Vandervelde and I'll be your facilitator. Today, we'll explore the role of philanthropy in family, business, and community with a panel of experts. Just a quick reminder, the lines are muted, but at any time, please send us your questions through the webinar tool. And at this time, I'm going to pass it over to the host of our program, Mr. Joe Ambrose.
Thanks, Mike. Good morning to everyone and welcome. I'm Joe Ambrose, Executive Director of the First Bank Center for Family-Owned Businesses. Through the center, First Bank takes a holistic view of family-owned enterprises and delivers services to them beyond traditional banking products. These services are centered on insight and advice that address the family component of family-owned businesses. Today, we welcome our own David Frederick to lead a panel discussion with Barbara Carswell of Youthbridge, Deborah Dubin of Philanthropy Missouri, and First Bank's own Director of Community Affairs, Stacy Clay, on the topic of the role of philanthropy in a family-owned business. But now, without further ado, David Frederick.
Thank you very much, Joe. Hello, everyone, and thank you for joining us. Today, we're talking about the role of philanthropy in family-owned businesses. As we know, philanthropy can be broadly defined as giving something of value, money, effort, time, for the benefit of someone else and expecting nothing in return. It is therefore an inherently charitable endeavor. It is, to say the least, a worthy endeavor, and perhaps one of the most worthy endeavors that people can pursue. But today we examine how philanthropy relates to business, specifically family-owned business. Business, which is centered on creating value for profit of the business, may seem initially at odds with the altruistic aspect of philanthropy. We need to investigate how these two concepts, business and philanthropy, relate to each other and potentially support and benefit each other. Thankfully, we're joined by a panel of experts to help in this investigation. Let me introduce them. First, we have Barbara Carswell. Barbara, would you go ahead and turn on your camera, please? There we are. Thank you. Barbara Carswell is the Chief Executive Officer at Youthbridge Community Foundation, a philanthropic organization focused on children, youth, and families in the St. Louis area. At Youthbridge, Barbara connects charitably minded individuals, families, and businesses with charitable opportunities and needs in the community. Barbara is also an internationally educated tax attorney and serves on the board of directors of several additional philanthropic organizations. Barbara, good morning, and thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you very much, David.
Excellent. Let me also introduce Deborah Dubin. Deb, if you could turn on your camera, please. Thank you. Deborah Dubin is the CEO and president of Philanthropy Missouri, formerly known as the Gateway Center for Giving, a philanthropic organization that facilitates impactful charitable giving across Missouri. Deb is actively engaged in civic life and has served on numerous boards and commissions that are committed to improving lives and fostering community impact. Deb's background also includes work as an attorney, an executive at a venture capital firm, and a university professor. Deb, good morning, and thank you so much for joining us.
Good morning, David. Thanks for having me.
Thank you so much. And finally, Stacy Clay. Stacy, there we are. Stacy is the Senior Vice President and Director of Community Affairs with First Bank. Stacy is responsible for First Bank's philanthropy and community engagement, as well as the bank's Fair Lending and Community Reinvestment Act programs. Stacy has a broad background in education, as he has taught in St. Louis public schools and private school settings, both in public and private settings. Served as a Deputy Superintendent for Student Affairs for St. Louis Public Schools, and has served on the University City School Board. Stacy, thank you so much for being a part of this.
Thank you, David. Pleasure to be here.
All right, Stacy, I'm going to come to you first. I'd like to open our discussion with a question to you and then build upon that. Stacy, when I think of philanthropy, I think of an endeavor that occurs to me to be uniquely personal or perhaps a family pursuit. Can you tell us, in your mind, why are we talking about philanthropy in the realm of business or family-owned business? What's the relationship between family-owned business and philanthropy?
Well, thanks for the question, David. Family-owned businesses are often uniquely connected to the community. They're often smaller in scale, and the employee base and, of course, the family draws from the community. And so that kind of connection to the community often leads family-owned businesses to want to give back and support that community. And the best way to do so, or the most efficient way to do so, is through philanthropy. And so for family-owned businesses, they're often going to look within their immediate environment. They're going to look at causes that will support where they do business, the location or the locations. And it's a very, as you mentioned, a very personal kind of decision. This is not a decision that's made by looking at sales figures or other kind of hard metrics. It's a decision that comes from the heart, that comes from the passion of the family to want to serve the community in whatever way they see fit.
Very good. Thank you so much. Let's broaden the conversation out from that a little bit. Barbara, let me come to you next. Your organization, Youthbridge, offers philanthropy planning services for individuals, family, and businesses. We just got done hearing Stacy talk about how philanthropy is a matter of the heart, how it's a passion. What is the role of planning when it comes to philanthropy?
Good morning to everybody on the webinar. As Stacy said, philanthropy is a very personal things, and we all give for our own reasons. And when I've talked to our clients, I've heard everything from I want to do good, I want to make a difference, I want to be impactful with my giving, or I want to contribute to change even. But often people are overwhelmed by these goals and sometimes even frustrated by it. They are thinking, are we giving to the right organizations? For families, is everybody's voice in my family heard of where they want to give or what they want to accomplish? Could I engage my employees more in our giving? Are we giving the right amount of money? Could we be giving more? Should we be giving less? And philanthropy planning lets you answer all of those questions. And good planning helps you address your lack of time, your lack of expertise that you may have, and helps you build an efficient and effective structure to get everybody involved. And so ultimately, it'll help you enjoy your giving and help you accomplish your goals.
Excellent. So we see that philanthropy, even for small businesses, closely held businesses, family businesses, may be a matter of passion of the heart, but it's also one that through planning can have goals that can be attained. Deb, let me come to you next with this. We're going to build on this answer a little bit as well. Your organization, Philanthropy Missouri, encourages, and this is my quote here, strategic and impactful giving. What does it mean for giving to be strategic and impactful? Isn't it just enough to give money and let the charities do what they will with it? What is strategic and impactful giving?
Thank you, David. And it's fun to be here alongside a member of ours, First Bank, for hosting us today, as well as Barbara Carswell at Youthbridge, who's a member of my board of directors. Philanthropy Missouri, just really quickly for folks who don't know us, is a membership association for organizations and individuals who are giving money away. We help them to be more strategic and impactful, as you referred to. And what that means is finding meaningful ways to contribute to your community. Sometimes it's dollars, sometimes it's time, sometimes it's expertise. All of those things are valuable. When we think about our community and why it's good for businesses to engage in giving, we know that it's important to have healthy, vibrant networks of nonprofits and educational institutions. And that really drives quality of life in a region, which all of our businesses have a vested stake in seeing occur. We help people to be more strategic and impactful by helping them to learn and to connect and then to act with impact. And that is to say, finding things that are meaningful to your business, to your organization, and investing in those things and making sure that whatever cause you choose, there's some alignment, both internally with your mission of your organization, but also externally with the goals, the greater goals, in this case for St. Louis, thinking about alignment of what we need to do to move the community forward as a whole. So we help folks think about ways they can do that on an ongoing basis, which is usually preferable to a one-off situation, doing something that is going to help move the needle on some strategies for change and fostering, good continuity is important. We also think about ways they can help engage employees in some of the work, which grows both morale internally, but also makes your place a business folks want to work in. And we think about being flexible. We know that folks need to anticipate things that may happen or challenges that may arise while they're engaged in their charitable giving endeavors, and giving people the opportunity to be a little more flexible. As an example, I'm sure a lot of folks didn't anticipate having to buy PPE a year and a half ago. When they were looking at what they were asking for dollars to do, they may not have anticipated that. So having some flexibility built into your charitable giving plan is also incredibly important. And that's how we help people think through how to be strategic.
Excellent, thank you. So we see this idea that Stacy has laid out that perhaps closely held businesses, family-owned businesses can connect with the community as a small business that can be integrated. Barbara tells us about planning and how that can help the business achieve their goals. Deb has talked about alignment, making sure that the goals of the business are aligned with those needs of the community. And we can also get to see that there are Youthbridge, there's Philanthropy Missouri, there are partners that can come alongside business. So Stacy, let me shift it back to you. When a business is thinking that it wants to engage in philanthropy, when it thinks that it does want to follow through with this, can you say how it is that a business should go about setting its vision for its philanthropy?
Well, I think it starts with the passion of the family members. What is the thing that folks around the table, those principal stakeholders, can get excited about? I think it begins with that conversation. I would encourage folks who maybe having some challenges with that conversation, because even though you may be part of the same family, you may have different passions as it relates to philanthropy. You may have different, you may have a lot of different opinions about a lot of different things related to the business. And so I would encourage families who may find themselves in a situation where there are a number of worthy causes that family members are advocating for, and of course finite resources, reaching out to a Youthbridge or a Philanthropy Missouri who can really help facilitate that conversation, or at least provide the tools to help have a productive conversation. And then to the earlier comments, provide some kind of strategy to make it impactful. But I think it really does begin with a conversation, again, among the principal, the family stakeholders, about where do we want to make an impact? What do we want to do in our community?
Very good. Stacy, let me ask you a very quick follow-up to that, which is when a family-owned business thinks about its vision for its philanthropy, for its community involvements, for its charitable giving of time and resources, money, is it better to be focused on one area specifically, or is it better to spread it out in your experience?
You know, I think that's very much a family decision. I mean, there's certainly to the argument of, you know, we're going to pick one area, you know, we're going to pick, childhood illness, for example, there, and we're going to invest a lot there with the idea of making an impact in that one area. There's another school of thought that may say, you know what, we have limited resources, but we want to try to give as much as we can to as many different causes that impact our community. My personal preference probably leans more towards but again, I think consulting with a Youthbridge or a Philanthropy Missouri can really help determine what the best approach might be.
Well, very good. So we've considered this idea of philanthropy with a closely held business, with a family-owned business, the partnership that Youthbridge or Philanthropy Missouri may be able to give, the ability for the family that owns the business to help set the vision and whether focus it or spread it around. Let me shift gears here. We're going to talk a little bit about some ancillary areas related to philanthropy. Barbara, I'm going to come to you next. Barbara, you have a background as a tax attorney. Now, we know that there are tax benefits from charitable giving. Can you give us a sense of the role of taxes, tax benefits, tax breaks in the business realm of philanthropy?
Well, people need to be charitably minded, and taxes are never the reason really why people give. But they do clearly, are a factor in terms of how much people, particularly businesses, will give, and also the timing of certain gifts. We've seen for the last 2 years, for example, that the limits on charitable deductions due to COVID legislation, for example, have increased. So right now, individuals can contribute up to 100% of their income if they make cash gifts to charitable organizations. For corporations, the 10% limitation, has increased to 25%. So, I'll give you an example. We work with a client right now who is a business owner and has income from a number of sources: his salary as the CEO of his company, investment income, and so forth. So, and he wants to contribute the maximum amount of money. So we look at, together with his accountant and his financial advisors, what pots of money do you give to certain organizations that qualify, for example, as a 501c3. You give something to a donor advised fund, and I know we'll talk a little bit about that later, that doesn't allow for thresholds. So taxes are very complicated, as we all know, but they do allow really for good timing of gifts and let your charitable dollars go further. One more point, and I think that's maybe really particularly of interest to listeners or participants of this webinar, is that charitable giving is a really, and planning is a really, really good tool in transfer of your business to the next generation. And it's a great opportunity if you're a charitably minded business owner to really take that event and fund some of your charitable efforts with that.
Very good. So as is the theme that we've been getting from you, the idea of planning, that planning can incorporate not just the charitable giving itself, but also the tax mitigation that comes with it. And in fact, you took it one step further and said the business succession planning comes with that as well. So Deb, let me switch to you. You have a sterling background in business and a deep background in business and executive roles in businesses. Do you see a business advantage for closely held businesses, for family-owned businesses that engage in philanthropy?
We do, absolutely. Just to take a quick step back, statistics tell us about 75% of small businesses engage in some form of philanthropy. And when we think about the average amount, there's a huge range, but there's an average that's often cited of 6% of profits. The other thing about local businesses and small businesses engaging in philanthropy is they're more likely to engage in local philanthropy. And in things that improve our immediate community. So there's a lot of great reasons why we would like to encourage and see folks engaging in this kind of work. But taking a step back, when you think about why it makes sense for businesses to give, I can think of a couple of reasons that really come to mind immediately. One is, again, it's good for the community, right? Having a vibrant, healthy infrastructure, high quality of life in the region. Another is it's good for the business. It reinforces relationships that they may have with clients or customers. It also creates a positive culture, both externally and internally for your business, a positive work environment. It demonstrates leadership. It shows that your business, your family's business, is interested in inspiring other people, encouraging optimism. And then finally, it's personally rewarding. Folks who lead small family businesses find that it's really a professional and personal benefit to them to engage in philanthropic activities. It feels good to see your contributions positively impacting the community. So for a lot of reasons, there's a business advantage for businesses that engage in philanthropic giving. It can be small or big. It can be sponsoring a little league team in your community, and it can be as large as underwriting a significant health clinic in your community that serves the folks who need it the most. So there's lots of ways to do it, but there's absolutely a business advantage both externally and internally. And I want to quickly give a shout out to a booklet that we just developed with Youthbridge. Some of the tax information probably needs updating, Barbara, based on what you just said about the latest. It's called the Business Guide to Giving, and you can get this. David will probably provide a link or something at some point in this webinar, but essentially it walks you through why give, how to give, and the ways that you can kind of think through a checklist of what sorts of things might match your mission, your business mission. So just wanted to quickly mention that that's available to folks, and it really was done through the good graces of Youthbridge. So we're grateful for that partnership.
Excellent. Thank you so much. So we see that philanthropy has a role in business, and we see some of the ancillary benefits in taxes, in community relationship, and potentially in improving business, improving employee morale, employee relationships with customers and clients. Deb, I'm going to come right back around to you. Now comes what should be the favorite part of this webinar, which is success stories. Do you have a success story, something that's near and dear to your heart, where you've seen business thrive in philanthropy and really made some difference?
I could give you a lot of examples. We have 70 members. Many of them are corporate members. Some are small businesses. Some are private foundations, family foundations, tax-supported foundations, donor-advised funds. And so for every family behind those organizations, there's a story to tell. But top of mind would be an example of First Bank this winter. If you think about the fact that First Bank took a look around and saw that food insecurity was a real issue, and back in January made it really easy for customers to contribute to food banks in their local communities by simply adding in a donation when they were at the ITM, interactive machines, to do deposits or to do withdrawals. You could select an opportunity to engage with a food bank in your own community to help with food access during a time. We don't need to underscore the fact that the pandemic hit certain people particularly difficult in particularly difficult ways. And so First Bank was able to, they were uniquely situated. You were uniquely situated to provide some food access opportunities for clients. So that's one small example of something that was an initiative undertaken that really impacted the community. And there are lots of examples, I think, which was formerly locally, that chose to do something unique, and it was a collaboration among nonprofits. They chose an elementary school in the St. Louis Public School District, Nance Elementary, and they did some wraparound services. They had 6 or 8 nonprofits all come together to provide holistic services for students there. So someone from the Allergy Foundation and someone who would provide literacy training, nutrition training, all sorts of folks who can help a student to thrive and succeed. And they kind of drove that one elementary school, one initiative, but kind of drove that collaboration among all those nonprofits to help the kids there. So there's a range of opportunities like that when you're thinking about charitable giving that you can have an impact, where you can have an impact.
Excellent. And it's nice to, first of all, thank you for the very nice comment for First Bank in our own outreach. But it is also nice to know that these efforts, especially on the community level, can be seen. There's fruit that can be seen as reward for the efforts that are made. Barbara, let me come to you next. Do you have a success story, something that's near and dear to your heart that you'd like to share of a successful philanthropic engagement with the community?
Mine are too numerous to share, and I will tell you, and I think both Deb and Stacy mentioned this before, that family businesses give local mostly, and they are really, I would say, the support system for most of our local nonprofits here. I go to a lot of events and I read a lot of grant applications, and I look at all the donors that have made major differences in a lot of the organizations, and I see one business or one family that I know that owns a business after the other really supporting and being responsible for the livelihood of a lot of those organizations. We do all see, the big corporations and the names out there, but I think there are so many, there's so much programmatic support for a business identifying either a cause or an organization that is very impactful in the community, and that becomes a really, really strong supporter. To the golf tournaments and the galas, they would not happen without this support. So I have a lot of stories to share, but I really think that the gratitude needs to be extended to every and all businesses that are out there supporting nonprofits, because they are the support.
Very good. So too numerous to share, but a very generally positive vibe for that. Stacy, let me come to you last with this question. In your experience as the Director of Community Outreach for First Bank, have you seen specifically some positive effects for what First Bank has done in its philanthropic efforts. Any stories near and dear to your heart that you'd like to share? Deb may have already taken one from you. Let's see if there's another one that you happen to have.
In terms of First Bank, there are a multitude of stories. I will focus on our most recent educational technology initiative. We all know what happened in 2020. I don't need to recount that, but early on in the pandemic, First Bank, first and foremost, was concerned about serving its clients and making sure they had access to their banking and financial needs. But once we had shorn that up, at least the best we could at the time, the leadership of the bank quickly pivoted to what we could do in the community. And based on my experience in St. Louis public schools and being in education, the word I was getting from my contacts in that field was we need computers, we need hardware, we need ways for young people to get online, hotspots, because as we all know, schools had to go to remote learning in a matter of weeks, in some cases days. And so these were unplanned expenses. And so really the leadership of First Bank sprang into action and activated me to see to it that we could provide hardware for some selected school partners. So we bought computers, laptops, tablets, hotspots for schools both in St. Louis and in California. In addition to that, we partnered with Maryville University to create a professional development program to help educators who were undoubtedly new to remote learning, because everyone was. My training is as a elementary school teacher, and I can assure you, even though I was in my teacher education program when dinosaurs roamed the earth, there was then and there is now no training on remote learning, teaching via Zoom. And so we collaborated with Maryville to put together a professional development program that our schools were able to take advantage of. So that to me is a real indication of how philanthropy can be dynamic. To Deb's point, it can be flexible. We hadn't talked about education technology. That had never come up prior to April of 2020, but here we are making our most significant investment, I think probably in the bank history. So I'm very proud of that success.
Excellent. Thank you so much. So we do see some positive stories, and as Barbara says, and I think Deb said as well, they're numerous, and perhaps we're even too numerous to share, but even these small examples can demonstrate the kind of impact that a closely held business, a family-owned business, can have on the community that surrounds it. Let me shift gears one more time. Barbara and Deb, we have, in talking with both of you, we understand that planning is part of philanthropic giving, that impactful, strategic giving is important. So let's talk a little bit about structures and perhaps some technical structures. And Barbara, I'm going to come to you first. And I'm going to acknowledge that Youthbridge is a community foundation that has donor-advised funds. Can you please explain to us in a clear way, what is a donor-advised fund and how it might be used for family businesses?
A donor-advised fund, you can imagine it basically like a charitable giving account. One makes a donor, whether an individual or a business, sets up a fund at a sponsoring organization, and community foundations are the ones who traditionally have actually had the first donor advised funds. So it's a simple fund agreement, and the donor then makes a contribution into that fund. We are a 501c3 public charity, so you get an immediate tax deduction just as if you were giving to a nonprofit agency directly. We then go out and invest your assets upon your advice. You can either do it through a pooled funds that we have, or you can bring your own financial advisor, continue to work with that person. And then eventually you make grants out of that fund. And in a corporate setting mostly, donor advised funds are almost like corporate foundation lookalikes. You can name your fund a foundation, so you don't have to use the term, the First Bank Fund. You could call it the First Bank Foundation. The setup, as I mentioned, is very easy. So you don't have to go and see an attorney to draft the governing documents for your foundation. We do all the compliance for you. There are no annual tax returns to file. We make the check distribution. So everything is handled by us, which for your business saves you in terms of, corporate staff that you need to dedicate to your foundation. It's also a really convenient and easy vehicle if you want to engage your employees, for example, in your giving, or if you want to match employee giving. And finally, coming back to the local philanthropy, as a community foundation, we are the experts on the charitable needs and the nonprofits in our community. And so if you have a donor advised fund with us and you want our help, we are here to help you with advice wherever you need it. If you have business locations, for example, in multiple states or in multiple locations within our state, we're part of a network. All community foundations, we're part of an organization like Philanthropy Missouri or nationally, and we talk to each other all the time. And so we can even help you, or at least make the connections to people that can help you with local expertise in other parts of the country.
Excellent. So it's an account, a fund that Youthbridge will manage and will help with this disbursement. And I think I heard you say that it takes the place of a charitable foundation or a private foundation. Let's complete this circle then. And Deb, I'm going to come to you. And can you explain to us what a private foundation is and what its role might be in the charitable realm? Has it been entirely replaced by the donor advised fund? Does it still have a relevant role in philanthropy in the community? And Deb, I believe that your microphone is muted.
Had to happen at least once today.
Yeah, there we go. Thank you.
A lot of moving pieces here. Barbara did a great job of laying out the pros of a donor advised fund, and I think many of our funders utilize that mechanism. Some are national, some are local, and I think Barbara's point that there's a lot of deep local roots in investing in a community foundation in your own community. It really helps because they can refer you to nonprofits and they work directly with nonprofits. There are a lot of other structures folks choose. One is a direct giving program, which is a program that's operated and controlled by the company. And there are funds that come directly from the company, and then, it's a tax deductible charitable expense. There's also company sponsored foundations, which is, I think, what you're alluding to, David, which is a legal entity separate from the company. And they're funded primarily by the company, and they, obviously have to follow IRS regulations, but they have their own bylaws, their own governance structure, and you're going to have to ramp up in terms of all the compliance to maintain that separation. There's also donor advised funds, as Barbara mentioned, where it's a fund within a community foundation or other public charity. And then also there's 501c3 public charities. Folks can set up a pool or allocate resources that way. So there's a lot of different ways to go about doing it. And part of the question is really how much control that you want to have, how you want to allocate the money, and also, how much you want to staff up that organization. So there's a lot of pros and cons, and we have some checklists sort of that you can use if you're thinking through how you want to proceed. But, simple is good. I don't think that anyone has to do anything too sophisticated to get started. I think the point is to get started. And I think sometimes we get overwhelmed by thinking through structure, and in fact, we have good intent, but we get bogged down, and then we don't do the good work that we want to do because we're worried about those things. So there are definitely experts and people that can help, and I know First Bank has some experts on site as well. So so don't let that be a dissuasion from getting going on this.
Certainly not. Like you said, the most important first step is to take a first step. So we've considered a little bit about donor advised funds and the charitable foundations that may come alongside them, some of the pros and cons, control being one of them. Let me just say a quick word as well. My role is as Director of Client Success and Advice at First Bank Wealth Management. First Bank Wealth Management is a chartered trust company, and we can be trustee for any number of trusts. We have seen what a donor advised fund may look like, a charitable foundation may look like, and as someone who works for a trust company and provides ongoing trusteeship and ongoing success and advice and perspective to our clients, let me just say there are also charitable trusts out there. A charitable trust is a structure, usually what's called a split gifting structure, where an asset can be given in part to a charity and in part to a child or someone who is an heir or a successor down the line. Barbara mentioned earlier that charitable structures can be part of business succession planning, the transition of the business from one generation to the next. And that's the exact kind of structures we work with at First Bank Wealth Management. Charitable trusts, charitable structures, charitable lead trusts, charitable remainder trusts. If you're interested at all in how a charitable structure may in fact be a part of a business succession plan for your family-owned business, I would encourage you to reach out to myself for some advice on this perspective. Also reach out to Barbara and Deb for advice on private foundations through the checklist that Deb mentioned, through a donor advised fund, as Barbara mentioned. Let me bring it around to the last round of questions, and Stacy, I'm going to come to you. We've seen some of the benefits of family-owned business philanthropy. We've seen some of the structural considerations, some of the planning, strategic considerations, and as Deb said in her last response, the most important first step is to take a first step. So let me ask you specifically and directly, how can a business that is not currently philanthropic start a philanthropic program and start walking down this path?
I think in the specific case of family-owned businesses, I have often heard of families taking, for example, holiday time, Thanksgiving, winter or other winter holidays, to really sit down and begin that process of determining what the family may be passionate about, in what ways they want to give back. The holiday season tends to be a time when folks are in that mindset and are thinking outwardly and thinking charitably, and so that tends to be a good time for family-owned businesses in particular, to get around a table and to begin to have that conversation. Other small businesses that may not necessarily have a family component, I think it's engaging various stakeholders. I think it's engaging clearly leadership of the business, but also employees, because we've talked a lot about philanthropy from the perspective of giving money, dollars, but there's also philanthropy in terms of gifts of time, and that manifests as volunteerism, and that's where your employee base can really get involved. And so I think even with a family-owned business, I think they can certainly set the vision, but at some point you do want to bring the employees in, because they can really, again, provide that additional support with volunteerism. But it really begins with starting with the passion, starting with the heart. This is not going to be, again, necessarily a metric-led conversation. You're not going to be looking at spreadsheets and figures per se. It's really starting with, what are we passionate about? What do we want to do for our community? And then it can go from there.
Very good. Thank you. The journey of 1,000 miles starts with the first step, and thank you for laying that out. Well, Deb and Barbara, let me wrap it up with you. And Deb, I'll come to you first. Would you like to mention any special programs or initiatives that Philanthropy Missouri offers? You've already showed the guidebook, and we can send out links to all the attendees follow-up email. So is there anything specific that Philanthropy Missouri is doing that you would like to mention?
Well, thanks, David. Ultimately, if you go to our website, which is www.philanthropymissouri.org, you can see the programs we're going to be offering. We do a lot of programs that help members of ours and guests to do some learning around topics of interest to sometimes small family businesses and sometimes larger companies and foundations and so forth. We'll drill down on a topic so folks can learn more about it. We'll also teach skills and strategies around how to give. And lastly, we do a lot of networking. We find that folks learn a lot from peers who are in the charitable giving space, so we try to foster that connection. We know that collaboration proceeds at the speed of trust, and we build that trust both within our own organization as a trusted advisor, but also for our members to get to know each other better. It's really important. If folks want to do things collaboratively or in alignment with greater goals, it helps them to have peers that they can talk to. So we try to foster that connection. So take a look and see what programs are coming up. Let us know if you're interested in joining us for one or several, just to check us out. And we're happy to have you participate. We're stronger with more folks around the table with diverse backgrounds, opinions, lived experience. We're very focused on ensuring inclusivity in what we do as an organization and in what we see folks doing from a charitable giving perspective. So feel free to get in touch with us if you're interested in learning more.
Excellent. Thank you so much, Deb. And Barbara, I'll come to you last. Is there anything that Youthbridge offers as a program or an initiative that you'd like to highlight? Specifically, can I ask you about the charitable gift card initiative that Youthbridge offers? Whether it's the gift card or any other initiatives, would you like to mention something that Youthbridge is doing?
Yeah, we have a couple of initiatives or products that I think are, maybe interesting to family-owned businesses. So one is the charitable giving card, David, that you mentioned. It basically works like a regular commercial gift card, and the buyer of that card actually gets a charitable tax deduction. They are the ones who are making the gift, and then the recipient of that gift card can use it to donate to any 501c3 in the country. They come in all kind of, denominations. You can do it as small as $25 all the way up. We have some clients who use $1,000 giving card. We can customize it with any business logo or just, a generic thank you or whatever the occasion may be. They make a great gift to customers, clients, to employees, as a reward. For example, you host a blood drive and you want to encourage your employees to participate. Those are great little gifts for it. And then they can actually function as a really basic engagement employee giving program, engaging your employees in charitable giving, leading them on that path. So they are a great tool for businesses. The other initiative that I want to highlight, and we do this in partnership with First Bank and are so grateful for it, for the sponsorship, is our Youth Engaged in Philanthropy program. And that is really a wonderful training program for the next generation in your family. If you're at all interested to get them engaged into your giving, starting a conversation about values that Stacy mentioned. And so it's a group open to any high school student in the area. We have a very diverse group of about 25 or so students that join us from all zip codes, and they get a certain amount of money, and the only parameter that they have is that this money needs to go to a child-serving organization in the St. Louis area. And I don't even want to use the term learn, because it's really an act of working together and learning in the process of how you give money away in a thoughtful way. They discuss the needs, they draft guidelines, draft the applications, have interviews with the organizations. And we have done this, I believe, for about 5 years. We've had our first graduating class of students that started as freshmen and, came back for 3 more years all the way through high school graduations, and just have tremendous feedback. And again, First Bank has been such an incredible partner with this.
Excellent. Well, thank you so much. Thank you, everyone, for joining us today. And it's really nice to know that philanthropy can be a very important part of a family-owned business, and that family business owners are not alone, that they can partner up with Philanthropy Missouri, with Youthbridge, even with First Bank Wealth Management, to be able to help plan, strategic impact what they're giving of charitable giving, charitable time giving, charitable money giving can have an impact on their community. So with that, we have about 10 minutes available for questions and answers from the audience. Mike, if you're with us, do we have any questions from the audience?
Sure, so just let me give a quick reminder. If you do have a question, just go ahead and open up that webinar tool and type it in there, and we'll be able to ask that to our panel of experts here. We do have a question here that says, how can a business owner know what kind of charities are available to give to? Is there a directory of charitable organizations?
Directory of charitable organizations. Deb, I think I'll come to you with this one because I think you had mentioned something along this line before. How will business owners know where to give? What is the directory of charitable organizations?
There's no directory of charitable organizations that's comprehensive that I know of, but there are a lot of ways to find out where the need is. And so one example would be United Way has a great list of agencies that they support, and you can take a look through that agency list to see if anything resonates. But the other ways that you find out about what need looks like is by, doing things as simple as reading the paper and the business journal and thinking through in your community where you see need. Your intuition is a great guide. One of the things we haven't mentioned and I want to throw out there as another alternative for engaging in community is serving on a board. And many people already do that. They get involved in nonprofit boards and they serve as a member of that governing body, and they learn intimately what the needs are and what the services are that nonprofit provides. So that's another way of getting engaged and of being charitable with your time. And I'll give a quick shout out to Rich Reifel of First Bank, who serves on our board and has been instrumental in helping us think about strategy. So again, I just want to throw that out there. We hadn't mentioned that as an alternative as well for learning about what happens in the community with respect to nonprofits. It's getting involved in something in your own community.
Excellent. So Mike, any other questions?
So that does appear to be all the questions that we have for now. So let me just give kind of a last call here. If you have any questions, just go ahead and type them in. But not seeing any others, we can go ahead and turn it back to Mr. Joe Ambrose for a wrap.
Thanks to Barbara, Deb, Stacy, and David for an enlightening discussion today. And thanks to everyone for joining us. Please mark your calendars for our next monthly webinar, July 15th at 1 p.m. Central Time. We're excited to have Allie Taylor, principal of Orange Kiwi Consulting, talk about how to handle the unexpected events in a family-owned business that can impact that business. So until next time, stay well.
Thanks all. Have a great day. We'll catch you next time.
Thank you.